Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1965, written by Delicious Moment 2224. The haunted house's blackened soul were not in control. One day, I went to spend a weekend with some friends at another friend's house, which was in a very isolated spot in the middle of the forest, in a village in the Portuguese countryside. It was a get-together among friends, so we had some alcoholic drinks, but it was still early in the night, so no one was drunk yet. In the middle of the hangout, a friend and I decided to go for a walk in the area and take some Polaroid photos, playing a bit with the flash in the dark. The only access to my friend's house was through a dirt road. So to reach the main road, we had to walk along that dirt path, taking photos along the way. When we reached the main road, we decided to turn left and follow a street that led into a residential area. As soon as we entered that side road, we came across a house that caught both of our attention. Not because there was anything visibly wrong with it, but it felt like the aura of the house hit us both. We looked at each other and said exactly that the house had a strange energy. We ignored it and kept walking along the path with a few curves. After walking for about 30 minutes, we started seeing a familiar structure. A bridge that was very close to the entry of the side road we initially chose. We were a bit confused because it felt like we had made a 360 turn and ended up back at the starting point. With this realization, we decided to head back to the house, as the atmosphere was getting a bit strange and confusing. The next day, at the end of the day, we decided to go for another walk at night, doing the exact same route as the night before. We followed exactly the same path, passed by the mysterious house, and decided to take a photo to remember the moment. Considering that we'd taken several other photos along the way, as we moved forward, our perspective of the path seemed very different from the previous day. This time, there were no leftward curves, and it looked like there were more bushes. Then, out of nowhere, we realized that the road led to a giant asphalt slope, going up to the top of the village and into another residential area. Once again, we were confused by what was happening, and without panicking, we decided to calmly turn back and head home. When we got back to the house, we looked through all of the photos we'd taken during the walk, and to our amazement, the photo of the mysterious house was the only one that came out completely black. There could very well be a technical explanation for this, but if it was a coincidence, it was a very well planned one. For me, the strangest part of this experience was the fact that both of us, not just one, were experiencing these events and these sudden shifts in perspective. And of course, when we got back to my friend's house, we immediately told everyone what happened. But neither of us could tell the story coherently, and I'm sure they just thought we were starting to go crazy. Case file 1965. The haunted house's blackened soul were not in control. So, given the manipulation of perception or even space-time itself, I don't think this was a haunting. I think it goes beyond it. This house was out of place in time and even perhaps the universe. And if we think about it, we can transmit ourselves to different universes, not by will, but if a human can go, objects disappear all the time. They move back and forth in DOP, re-rendering, duplication, and so on. And I've asked myself many times, what is the size limitation? Is there a size limitation? What if an entire house was moved, an entire area, a neighborhood, and that could, layered on top of each other, create this effect where you go back to the same place and it's entirely different. The pathways are different even. It's almost like the staircases in Hogwarts, always shifting themselves, although in this case, extremely rarely. Case file number 1966, written by Shrinky666. The pouch that puzzled. My mind did fuddle. I went shopping for my husband for a pouch he can use for his new trimmer and attachments. As I was looking through the bags that were next to the travel size items, I picked up one black bag that was fairly cheap. I opened it, looked inside, and there was white, crumpled up paper in it. Zipped it back and continued looking in a different area to see if we could find something else. When I exhausted my efforts, and have not moved this bag from my hands at all, or picked anything else up for that matter, I went to unzip the bag again, but I couldn't. It had a plastic tab holding the zipper in place so you couldn't open it. But I had just opened this same bag a few minutes earlier. I stared at the bag for a good few seconds before deciding, F it, I'm getting it. I went to my truck, took the tab off, and lo and behold, white paper. Now I'm sitting in the truck wondering what the F just happened, and had to share this with everyone. Just a mind-perplexing situation. Caissons from 1966. The pouch that puzzled? My mind did fuddle. Right, so this one's such a small glitch, but would it be a de-render and re-render? When you were looking, the pouch disappeared and re-rendered as something it wasn't before, but it still had the paper in it. So it re-rendered just with this little notch on it, the plastic tab to keep it from being unzipped. That kind of fits, but outside of that, I'm just not sure. Classic glitch indeed. Case file number 1967, written by Belagshadow. Shadows in the Sun, and a little girl's fun. Worked at a cemetery for many years as a lawn mower, and have 3 weird experiences. One of the cemeteries I worked at was an entirely flat, open space. They didn't allow headstones that stood above the ground. Everything was flat. We're talking this place was acres and acres of just grass. Well, when I would work, I would wear headphones and listen to music. Every week, without fail, there was one headstone that, when I drove near it with the lawnmower, my music would shut off. Now this was in the days of iPods, and no matter if the thing was fully charged or not, it would shut down. Guess the old man buried there didn't like my taste in music. Same cemetery, different day. I was on the very south part of the cemetery, mowing away, when I looked up and saw a man walking on the north side of the cemetery. That in of itself wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that it was 102 degrees that day, and the guy was dressed in a long black trench coat, black combat boots, black brimmed hat, and long black beard. I stopped and watched him for a minute, but he didn't seem to be looking for a headstone, just walking. I got back to work, and in one instant I was looking at the man, and the next thing, he was gone. He just straight up vanished. Freaked me out. Second cemetery I worked at was much older and had the typical headstones above ground. I had stopped working for lunch and had gone into the small shack that housed the bathrooms. As I'm sitting there, I can distinctly hear the voice of a little girl. As I listen, it sounds like she's playing with dolls or stuffed animals. No big deal. I walk outside just to check and see if there was anyone who needs help, and there's no one there. The place is completely empty. Walk back in the shack and I can hear her again. That one didn't freak me out too much because I think whatever it was just enjoying the warm day. Caissons from 1967, Shadows in the Sun, and a little girl's fun. I like your positive attitude towards the end, and in general, I don't think most spirits are evil. I think if you're in some random cemetery, and most of them, it's going to be filled with maybe 100% good people, or just people, good and bad, but overall not a malicious spirit. It is sad to think about a little girl who might have passed away early, prematurely, extremely prematurely. If I was her, I would just be out and about trying to enjoy the day. I do wonder if these fragments, these echoes, can they enjoy the same things humans do when they're alive, like the warmth of the sun on their skin? Or can they eat? We've had a few cases where possibly spirits can eat, but what happens? Can they taste the flavors? Of course, there's no bacteria inside them, so the food can't digest. It would just be mush, undigested mush somewhere. It would pass right through them after they phase away. So I don't know about all those details, but overall, I'd say this is a wholesome story, which ghost cemeteries, you wouldn't think it's wholesome, but in my view it is. Now time for the joke of the day. My wife was blaming me for ruining her birthday. That's ridiculous. I didn't even know today was her birthday. So it looks like someone is going to join that little girl in the cemetery. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.